Most Star Wars fans love Dave Filoni's 2008 to 2014 Star Wars cartoon, The Clone Wars. I assume you do too. But did you know that in 2003 there was an earlier, completely unrelated Star Wars cartoon named Clone Wars? This 2D animated microseries by Genndy Tartakovsky was released in the years between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. It is not canon and hasn't been since many episodes of the other Clone Wars overwrote it, but I couldn't say I'm cataloging every ship in every Star Wars if I skipped this animation masterpiece. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is every ship and vehicle in Tartakovsky's Clone Wars. The first ships in Clone Wars enter the scene a mere 19 seconds into the show. A squadron of Delta 7 Aethersprite Jedi interceptors and 8 LAATI gunships. They are roaring into battle against the Separatists. The droid army has no ships or vehicles here, but they do have 3 OG-9 homing spider droids. After Attack of the Clones, I've decided that any droid large enough to be a vehicle will count as one for our purposes. The Grand Army of the Republic also fields several of these things, which I assume are supposed to be a very abstract take on the AT-TE tanks. A squadron of additional Delta 7s destroy the Separatists' Hailfire droid tanks, and we see a montage of similar battles with the same vehicles on other planets. We see many unidentifiable Coruscant traffic ships out the window. I thought I would get a break from these in a hand-drawn cartoon, but I guess not. Later, we see much more accurately drawn AT-TEs being loaded into Acclimator-class assault ships, as well as several SPHATs. We also get our first ever look at a squadron of Slain and Corporal V-19 Torrent starfighters. Furthermore, we see Anakin Skywalker's customized Delta 7 interceptor, the Azure Angel. He modified it with better weapons, bigger engines, and a paint job reminiscent of the pod racer that won him his freedom. The Republic's fleet of acclimators drops out of hyperspace above Muunilinst, where they are met by a fleet of intergalactic banking clan gun platforms, which launch squadrons of Geonosian Nantek's territorial defense starfighters to counter the Republic's V-19s. Hundreds of LATs land to battle the droid army on the ground, but one LAT containing a strike team of ARC troopers heads into the city. After being shot down, they encounter an AAT, which they make swift work of destroying. On Mon Calamari, we see some kind of Quarren repulsor craft. We also see more acclimators land on the surface of MC's ocean, which is an interesting landing situation that I'm not sure I've seen anywhere else in Star Wars. The Quarrens have aligned with the Separatists, who have provided them with Manta droid sub-fighters, Heor-Chal engineering sub-carriers, and battle droids on mini-subs which were modified MVR-3 speeder bikes. They also have a Quarren crab cannon. Back on Muunilinst, we see a large company of assassin droids on swoop bikes, led by the bounty hunter Dirge, who has a customized swoop bike of his own. To combat this, Kenobi and his troops break out their own Aerotech 105K Lancer bikes. Later, on the planet Rat-Attack, we see Count Dooku arrive in his Punwarka 116-class solar sailor. He is training his new apprentice Asajj Ventress, who arrives to the space battle over Muunilinst in a Hoopla Pacitisk Shipwrights Collective Actis-class fanblade starfighter. After Anakin chases her into hyperspace, Obi-Wan Kenobi's clone troopers follow him in a Corellian Engineering Corporation CR-20 troop carrier. On Dantooine, we see Mace Windu's forces fighting the Separatists, who reveal a Heor-Chal engineering seismic tank, an enormous repulsor craft capable of defeating entire armies at once just by punching the ground really hard. Fortunately, it is no match for Mace. Later, we see Padme take Yoda to Ilum to rescue several Jedi aboard her H-type Nubian yacht. Somehow, it turns into a J-type 327 Nubian starship for this one shot with Padme, Captain Typho, R2-D2, and C-3PO discussing the mission outside its boarding ramp. Other shots from the ground appear to be the correct type, as are the shots from above, but just for this one single shot, it has the engine of a J-type. Truly, the Force works in mysterious ways. There are no new ships for the rest of Volume 1, but we see several of the ships we've already discussed again. Volume 2 of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars starts with a customized LAATI gunship used by the Clone Squad Muunilinst 10, which featured a unique paint job and several modifications. It flies through the wreckage of several crashed acclimators, and its intimidating paint job is even enough to scare off General Grievous. That may not sound terribly impressive to you if you've seen him in other media, but the 2D animated Grievous is much more powerful than the 3D or live-action version. After Anakin is knighted, he boards a brand new Kuat Systems Engineering Eta-2 Actis-class light interceptor. Then there's a time jump, after which we go to Bomis Cori 4, where we also meet the Kuat Drive Yard's Venator-class Star Destroyer and the Incom Sub-Pro ARC-170 starfighter. After that, there is a montage of Anakin doing cool things, where we find the Colicoid Creation Nest Droid Tri-Fighter and the Free DAC Volunteer Engineering Corps Providence-class Dreadnought. Later, we see clones riding all-terrain recon transports to attack a Separatist base that Anakin and Obi-Wan infiltrated. After that, on Kashyyyk, a pair of Wookiees discover a hidden C-9979 landing craft, which begins the invasion of the planet. It and other landing craft dispense an invasion force consisting of MTTs, AATs, Hailfire droids, and Techno-Union NR-N99 Persuader-class droid enforcers. Back on the planet with Anakin and Obi-Wan, we briefly see a Kuat Drive Yard's HAVW A5 Juggernaut among the Republic forces. After they are called away to hunt for General Grievous, they land on Nilvan in another CR-20 troop transport. Unfortunately, while they are gone, the Separatists begin their invasion of Coruscant with more C-9979s and Tri-Fighters, as well as Vulture droids. The landing craft deploy MTTs and all manner of land-based droids which crush land speeders and generally wreak havoc across the city. Saesee Tiin and Mace Windu lead their squadrons of ARC-170s into the battle above in their personal Eta-2s. Mace's is, of course, purple. Unfortunately, he crashes it into a swarm of Vulture droids and the wings are torn off, so he jumps out and rides a Vulture droid instead, controlling it by yanking on the wires in its head like the reins of a horse. Not one to be outdone, Master Tin does the same thing on a much larger scale, leading the clone troopers from a critically damaged Venator onto and into a Providence that got within jumping distance and taking it over. Unfortunately, it seems that the space battle only consists of Providences and Venators in this version of the story. And speaking of a lack of ships, we don't see any new or interesting ones until much later on Nelvon. After Anakin destroys the Separatist base that has been kidnapping and experimenting on the locals, we see several Techno-Union executives attempting to flee in a scaled-down Hardcell-class interstellar transport. Anakin puts a swift end to their escape, though, and leads the mutated Nelvon warriors back home. Back on Coruscant, Palpatine is kidnapped by Grievous and loaded into a ship called a Tri-Wing Shuttle, which only has 2 wings. And with one final shot of the space battle, the miniseries is over. So that's every ship and vehicle in Tartakovsky's Clone Wars cartoon. As usual, let me know in the comments which one was your favorite, and if any of them were new to you. My favorite was the Muunilinst 10 lat. It's such a cool paint job and manages to be iconic despite only appearing in a couple minutes of a now relatively obscure cartoon. I'm genuinely surprised they never brought back that Clone Squad and their lat in Filoni's Clone Wars. I'd also be interested to hear what you think of Tartakovsky's Clone Wars in general. This was my first time watching it, and I had a blast. If you've never seen it before, check it out. Remember the part I mentioned where Mace Windu rides a Vulture droid like a surfboard? Well, after he crashes it on purpose to help Yoda, he decides to beat a bunch of super battle droids to smithereens with his bare hands using karate. He didn't even lose his lightsaber, he just did that for fun. Anyway, if you liked the video, share it with some friends. Maybe use it to convince them to watch this wild version of the Clone Wars with you. Make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next week. RFC, out.